Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Where we turn our attention next to the giant orange balloon that is poised, if the Air Traffic Control and the Metropolitan Police agree, is poised to float above Parliament Square to mark the visit of the child catcher-in-chief, Donald Trump, next week. I mean, presumably plenty of people have tried to use it as a sort of little cloak for a bit of low-level Islamophobia about Sadiq Khan, have they? Saying, Sadiq Khan, yeah, Muslim, yeah, balloons. But I genuinely thought this would go down well with everybody. Because I thought, from what I've seen of Donald Trump's supporters in this country, and I've been exposed to quite a few of them, indeed we had some in the audience at the O2 last week. I struggled to understand the nature of a public forum where everybody is welcome to contribute, but still, as they were sort of shouting their meaningless slogans as they were escorted out of the room, I felt that it gave me an insight into how they like to see themselves, and I thought they were really robust and thick-skinned. I thought the whole point about being a Donald Trump supporter was that everybody who is sensitive is some sort of SJW beta male. No, isn't that how it works? If you complain about, racism or something, you need to get over yourself. God, honestly, you can't take offence. You can't, no, what is it? I always get this wrong because it's so bovine. You can't, yeah, that's it. You can't give offence, you can only take it. So I genuinely thought that when people who find Donald Trump's policies of boasting about personal policy of boasting about grabbing women by their vaginas or ripping babies from their mothers and sticking them in cages as a result of just in case you're still labouring under any of the fake news lies, as a direct result of a policy enacted by the Attorney General Jeff Sessions on the 6th of April this year, following on from a door that was left open by the Department of Homeland Security on the 25th of January last year, specifically the separation and incarceration of children. I thought all the people who got cross when people like me said, that's not very nice, that's pretty bad, that's a bit like what the Nazis were doing in the 30s. I thought that you just sort of have to shut up and get over it, and that, you know, freedom is really important. Freedom of speech is really important. You should be able to say what you want to say. But they're really cross about a balloon. I mean, it's almost as if the word or the story was written to add to a kind of air of verbal comedy, because the word balloon has a certain beauty to it, being cross about a balloon. Imagine waking up today, and I know that a lot of effort is put into making you cross about stuff you shouldn't be cross about, and I know often we're all far too busy to stop and wonder, should I really be cross about this? Should I? But you have actually hit 7 minutes after 11 on Friday morning with a little fire of rage burning in your belly about a balloon. A balloon, I think, is a term of abuse in Scotland, and I'm tempted to employ it here. You'd have to be a complete balloon to have got your knickers in a twist about a balloon. The balloon is bright orange, and it depicts Mr. Trump as an angry baby, which is quite kind and charitable, really. The prospect of other politicians being mocked in this way is not quite as amusing, because they don't seem to be as thin-skinned or as delusional as Donald Trump does. But some of the stuff on the floats in Germany last summer, I mean, they were pornographic depictions of Donald Trump, caricatures, and much, much, much worse than this. It's been suggested in some quarters that American presidents have never been so vilely abused, which kind of forgets about the ones that got assassinated, doesn't it? This idea that a balloon is some appalling offence and assault upon a president. I also like the argument that it's not about the individual who is a self-confessed sex offender, multiple bankrupt, and cheat, really. I suppose is the nicest thing you can say about him. Cheated on all of his wives, I think, as far as we know, hasn't he? I like the idea that, it's not about insulting him, it's about insulting the office. I love that. It's Neville Chamberlain, isn't it? Yeah, it's the Chancellor of Germany. We should not insult his office by calling him a Nazi murderer. We should respect his office. Could you imagine anybody 5 years ago in this country objecting to the idea of mocking politicians, especially foreign politicians, And yet that is now where we have ended up. You know my theory, don't you? You know what I think we should do when he gets here, because I love the British tradition of mockery. I don't like the idea of there being violent protests. I really don't. I know he makes people very, very angry, but at this point in history, I don't think violent protests serve a purpose. And of course, we've learned from the Russian manipulation of the American election that quite often they deliberately try to foment violence. It's this phrase which, if you live in normal circumstances you probably haven't come across, but there's an attempt by the alt-right or the neo-fascists to weaponise this phrase anti-fascists. They shorten it to anti-fa, and the argument is that whenever there's like a Ku Klux Klan rally in America that leaves someone dead, it's the anti-fa's fault. You see, it's the people who don't like fascists who are to blame when fascists murder people. But I know it sounds nuts, but you trust me on this. You've got in this country the kind of shallow end version of it, which would be people who said leaving the European Union would be really, really bad, are to blame for the fact that leaving the European Union is really, really bad. The logic's very similar. The parallels between Trump and Brexit get uglier and bigger with every passing week, culminating in the fact that we now are apparently great defenders of democracy and freedom, but we're really upset about a balloon. I like the balloon. I wouldn't be surprised if it still doesn't happen, because air traffic control and the police have to get involved. But even more than that, I like the idea of just getting enormous speakers all the way up, whatever streets he's going to be walking down, or what we won't be walking, will he? But driven down, and just playing this music. I think this is the way that you do it, isn't it? This is how you welcome Donald Trump to London. Everywhere he goes. We need to get our ghetto blasters out from our youth. Literally everywhere he goes. He turns up, I don't know, waving on the streets of 10 Downing Street. Poor old Queen has to give him tea and he stumbles out of Buckingham Palace. God forbid he actually gets to sort of address the British public, but if he does, ghetto blasters at the ready. Because that's who we are, you know? We're the country of Monty Python and Peter Cook, and although Benny Hill's smuttiness probably wouldn't fit into the modern climate quite as comfortably as it fitted into the 1970s, this is what we do, a great big orange balloon of a man in a nappy. A disgusting, despicable man. No one's going to defend him, are they? For chucking babies in cages and having extramarital relations with pornographic actresses who he then seeks to pay off privately to avoid the public embarrassment. Speaking of public embarrassment, he wouldn't publish his tax returns. I mean, the catalogue of calumnies and corruptions that Donald Trump has indulged in both on a personal and a political level is almost endless. And I know that we live in a frightening era where alternative facts and barefaced lies can be used to persuade people to do stupid things. But this is Britain, this is London. We laugh at idiots. And the more self-important they are, the louder we laugh. That's what we do. How have we ended up here? Give us a call, 0345 6060 973. Is a note. Just like, I want sociological analysis of how you think your country has ended up being a place where there's even a debate about whether or not we have the right to mock a foreign politician. It doesn't even have to be foreign. We somehow don't. We shouldn't mock a politician despite the fact that he's chucking babies in cages and boasting about sexually assaulting women. Who are we allowed to mock if we're not allowed to mock him? Do you know what it is? It's political correctness gone mad. And that's where the gammon angle becomes so funny, because all of these people who are constantly banging on about, oh, you're not allowed to say anything more without causing anyone offence. You say, well, what is it you want to say? Well, I don't know, really. I just kind of want to say racist stuff about black people. Well, I mean, you can, but we've got laws governing hate speech, so you might get arrested. How do you feel about balloons? Oh, no, I haven't got any problem with balloons. Well, it turns out you have. Also, all the people who say, oh, dear, oh, we're all so sensitive, oh, snowflakes, I can't believe you're not allowed to say what you want in this world today. Or people who sort of argue that you can't give offence, you can only take it. No one can be offended by that balloon unless they choose to be. Why would you choose to be offended by a giant orange balloon? What else do they say? Political correctness. Oh, it's political correctness gone mad. Can you think of anything? Now, you know what a meaningless phrase political correctness gone mad is. But as we've discussed a lot recently, it doesn't matter how meaningless a phrase is. It's a gift from demagogues to people who hate thinking. So if you hate thinking, you can just, oh, it's political correctness gone mad. But you can't say it today, because actually today you're the one that's gone mad about an orange balloon. You're cross about a balloon. 0345 6060 973 is a number to call. To either perhaps tell me why I should be cross, what the point is that I'm missing, and that mocking politicians is not a long and proud tradition, that the Brits have generally done better than anybody else in the world. This is the kind of country of Private Eye magazine, Peter Cook. I love what he said. Do you remember what he said about the Establishment Club when he opened it in Soho in the 60s? He said it's modelled on the cabaret clubs of 1930s Berlin, which did such a brilliant job of resisting the rise of Nazism. I mean, then you've got to look at what other sorts of regimes or countries would have a problem with mocking a political leader. And the list is, I mean, it's long and but very easy to write. First in, do you think that in North Korea you'd be allowed to mock Kim Jong-un like this? No. You'd be thrown in a paper shredder. Do you think that in Russia you'd be allowed to mock Vladimir Putin like this? No. You'd be thrown in jail or possibly pushed off a bridge or Novichoked. Do you think that in Pol Pot-era Cambodia you would have been allowed to mock Pol Pot like this? Probably not, James. Probably not. Do you think under Henry VIII you'd have been allowed to mock the monarch like this? No, you'd have had your head chopped off. So what we're actually endorsing when we object to an enormous orange balloon is authoritarianism and censorship and the rejection of freedom. And also, what a bunch of babies. And today we open up a helpline for people who are frightened of balloons. If you're upset about the prospect of Donald Trump being mocked by a giant orange depiction of him wearing a nappy, give me a call and we'll work out whether I should be getting angrier or whether you should be winding your neck in. It's got to be one or the other. Jazz is in Crawley. Jazz, why are you frightened of a balloon?
I ain't frightened of no balloon. I just think it's absolutely pathetic, and cowards like you aren't even going to turn up to this Donald Trump rally or anything. You're just going to be sat there having a go at the radio and...
having a go at the radio? I'm on the radio.
Well, you're shouting at the mic and, you know, it's coming out through my speaker. I can't see you, you know.
That is how it works.
I'm not really interested about your balloon. I'm going to get my drone out and fly it right into it.
What day?
Because I think it's a bit disgusting.
What day, Jazz?
Go. Sorry?
What day are you going to do it?
I don't know, whenever the day, whenever the balloon goes up.
Well, you don't know when it is?
No, I've got no idea,
So
mate.
you're cross about a balloon going up on a day you don't know?
I'm not cross about...
You sound quite cross, Jazz.
I just think it's really pathetic.
Why? It's good to mock politicians, isn't it?
No.
No?
Really.
You don't think any politician should be mocked?
Well, let's just...
What about mocking disabled journalists? Where do you stand on that?
Where do you stand on fake news, James?
Well, I'm passionately opposed to it, Jazz, but you can't answer a question with a question. I'm amused that...
I can't do it. I can't answer fake questions with fake answers. Sorry, mate.
Well, it's not a fake question. How do you feel about mocking disabled journalists?
Fake news.
Donald Trump facing new criticism for something he did on the campaign trail last night in South Carolina while defending his debunked claim that he saw thousands of Muslims celebrate the collapse of the Twin Towers here in New York. He appeared to mock a reporter with a disability. Take a look.
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said. This is 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction.
That reporter he is talking about is Serge Kovaleski, who now works for the New York Times. As you can see right there, he suffers from a chronic condition that impairs movement of his arms. A Times spokesman says they find it outrageous that Trump would ridicule the man's appearance.
Well, we've seen the pictures, Jazz.
Oh, fake news.
So the pictures are fake.
Fake news.
How do you feel about mocking the families of Gold Star families?
Gold Star families. Again, fake news.
Okay, but you've seen it on your screen, Jazz.
I've seen it, mate.
How do you know that the Donald Trump balloon isn't fake news? Why have you chosen to believe this?
You're going nuts about it, and you know why?
Mate, I think it's funny. I'm not going nuts about it. I'm giggling.
But are you going to turn up?
To what?
Are you going to turn up to this?
I might do. I might not. I don't need to. Do I? I'll be able to see it from the office window. But let's just focus on why you. Have you phoned me before? This is the first time you ever phoned me was about a giant balloon. I just want to know why.
Because it's pathetic, James.
Well, you keep saying it's pathetic, but it's also funny. I mean, lots of things are pathetic.
I really cannot understand why you just keep attacking Donald Trump.
You can't.
I mean, James...
Well, we know why you can't understand, Jazz, because you describe all the facts behind reasons to attack Donald Trump as fake news, so you can understand why. Come on, Jazz. No one's that stupid. If you describe the evidence of your own eyes as fake news, then you can understand why people keep attacking him. It's not difficult to grasp. But if you describe facts as lies, then you've chosen not to understand why. I can't really help you any more than that. I'm interested in your attitude to the balloon.
Real facts. Give me some real facts.
I just have. He mocks disabled journalists. He boasts about sexually assaulting women. He's a multiple bankrupt. He mocked the families of a Gold Star general.
Fake news.
Fake news. But the balloon is real.
Let's try some real
But the
news,
balloon is
James.
real.
What don't you say about
The balloon is real.
21st executive order?
I have.
Human sex trafficking.
Balloon makes me cross. I hate balloons.
It doesn't make me cross.
I'm going to take my drone. I'm going to take my drone there and shoot it down. Ooh, jazzy baby.
For you.
Yeah, well, I'm very glad you feel sad for me.
I feel real sad for you. You're such a good, intelligent man.
With your drone and your fake news. With your drone and your fake news. What sort of drone have you got? What sort of drone have you got? What sort of drone have you got, Jazz?
Don't worry about my drone, mate. You just
No, I want to know. I want to make sure it's big enough to burst the great big horrible balloon. So what sort of drone have you got?
Mine's got lasers.
Yeah.
Whatever it's got. It
Okay,
really
Jazz. Well,
matter.
I'll look out for you. I'll look out for you on the day as you make a great assault upon freedom with your toy helicopter. Oliver's in Ealing. Oliver, what have we become?
Good morning, James.
Hello, Oliver.
I need your help. I need a sanity pill, if you can help me with that.
You need a what?
A sanity pill, because clearly you seem to be the only normal person that's able to speak any sense.
Fake news.
Of course. What I want to say is, why are we getting so out of our trolleys about a balloon?
No, I tried to ask the last fella that, but I couldn't really get to the heart of it. It's pathetic is the answer. It's pathetic. And mocking politicians is wrong.
You don't... Well,
says President Erdogan and Jazz in Crawley.
You get Theresa May, you get our cabinet. Listening to Nick Ferrari this morning.
No. I can only take responsibility for what goes on this radio station between 10 o'clock in the morning and 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
I know, I'm just saying...
All the rest is gravy.
The cabinet meeting at Chequers.
You what?
We don't have the cabinet meeting at Chequers.
Yes.
Talking about that. We don't have... When's the last time you saw the Americans openly mocking Theresa May? When was the last time you saw that? I haven't seen it at all. Yet we feel we can mock another country's president.
Of course we can.
We're embarrassing ourselves.
Oh, come off it.
We are. The balloon. And we're getting so hyped up over a balloon.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, we're embarrassing ourselves by getting hyped up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we are, but it is also, it's pathetic.
It is. It's completely pathetic. I think people need to have a reality check and see...
You're not going to be able to help me, and I'm not going to be able to help you, because I need to know what happens psychologically or emotionally when someone sees a balloon and goes nuts. Urgh! It's a great big orange balloon of a man in a nappy. And people have mocked up ones of Sadiq Khan, and it's a bit like that. That's the thing, isn't it? This inability to believe that the other side of the argument aren't as stupid and as bigoted as you are. Everyone must be as stupid and as bigoted as I am, otherwise I'm really stupid and bigoted. So I look at the mock-up of Sadiq Khan, I think that's pretty funny too.
Well, yeah. Look, I'm in the same boat as you.
I don't go with you. Well, all right, we'll part as friends, but you're not going to be able to help me out. So I look at the mocked-up balloon of Sadiq Khan floating over London, or I look at the spitting image. What about the spitting image puppets? Did we all hate them? Was that political correctness gone mad? Is that where the phrase came from, I think? That's where it achieved popularity, was during spitting image. Would they object to that as well? Is that pathetic?
You're asking the wrong person.
I am. Well, let's try and find the right person. Alex is in Derry. Alex, are you cross about this balloon?
Well, I wouldn't say cross, but I think it's rather rude to say the least. The man has been invited.
So I've got here, it says disgusted and appalled.
Well, I am appalled, yes.
Okay, but you're not cross.
Okay, I'm absolutely disgusted.
By a balloon?
James, the man was invited to the UK by the government of the day.
Yes, well, Margaret Thatcher was elected Prime Minister, but her spitting image puppet was hilarious.
Yeah, but hang about.
I am.
This is a visitor from another country, an ally of the UK, best of friends. I think it's very
He can
rude
take a
to
joke, can't he, Alex?
What about to the American people living here? What do you think they make of that?
I'll find out. They can ring me and tell me. I imagine that they'll be thinking this is really funny. It's one of the reasons why I moved to Britain. They've got such a magnificent sense of humour.
No, well, a senior individual in a very, very important office in London does not think anything of the kind. They think, look, two wrongs don't make a right.
Well, that's just...
What about Theresa May? I mean, come on.
You're sounding cross now, Alex. You said you weren't cross. Let's both calm down and start again. It's mocking a ridiculous man who has somehow managed to get himself elected President of America, probably with Russian help, and certainly by telling an awful lot of lies. As the first caller, Mr. Dwone, proved, he's persuaded people that the evidence of their own eyes can't be trusted. It's fake news. He is utterly ridiculous. He is a stain upon civilization. Why don't you think we should mock him?
Look, he's a visitor to the country. Why did they invite him in the first place? If that's
well, you know why they invited him in the first place. Because he's President of the United States of America, and after Brexit, we're going to be on our knees begging for crumbs from his table. But that doesn't rob me of my right to laugh at him, does it?
Well, yeah, no. But
you're disgusted and appalled that I'm laughing at this balloon.
How much does this balloon cost? I think the money was gathered up. It wasn't government money. Or
of course it wasn't government money, you silly old sausage. It's crowd-funded.
Well, I thought there was... Really? Well, that's ridiculous. That's even worse.
So you don't think people should be able to spend their money on whatever they want, either? Are you
if it's a collection, not coming from government funds.
You thought it was coming from the government, Alex?
The funds for the balloon?
Yes.
Well, that's not very good, is it?
What isn't?
Well, that's ridiculous.
What is?
Spending money on a balloon from the taxpayers' money.
They didn't spend any taxpayers' money on a balloon, Alex. Where do you get your news from? Fox?
Right, well, where has the money come from?
It's a public collection. People who have senses of humour and are slightly troubled by serial self-confessed sex offenders and baby cages have decided to laugh at him.
Well, why was he ever invited if it's that bad?
Oh, Alex, you'd have to ask Theresa May. We're talking about the balloon.
Listen, I don't think she could tell you the time without asking an advisor.
Well, I don't know quite what it is you're disgusted and appalled about.
It's not nice to have that floating over London.
It's hilarious.
Do you think so?
Did you like Spitting Image?
Yes, but that's a bit different.
Why is it different?
We were making fun of our own crew.
What? Oh, you don't think we should make fun of foreign political leaders?
James, not on a visit.
Kim Jong-un?
Say that again.
Kim Jong-un? We protested the Saudi Crown Prince when he was here. They were protesting Downing Street. You think we should just roll over and let foreign potentates and authoritarians come here and treat us like a kind of boutique?
Well, no, of course not, James.
Well, you kind of did when you rang in. I'm happy to have been of service. Carol is in Twickenham. Carol, down with balloons.
Hello.
Down with balloons. Down with... You're not joining in.
What I want to say is a slight slant on this story. We'd be rolling in the aisles if it was Boris Buffoon Johnson. Ha ha! What a funny thing. You know, we've got a great big balloon. Because it's Sadiq Khan, and people haven't really listened to what it's a peaceful protest. Is it because he's not, he's Sadiq Khan?
Well, he's only one of the people that has to give permission. I think you're suggesting that to pretend that this is all on him has a kind of racist subtext to it.
I feel there's a racist thing going on.
Well, you're absolutely right. There's absolutely no doubt about that. If Boris Johnson had given clearance for this, then the people moaning about the fact that Sadiq Khan has done it they'd be laughing their gammony faces off. But it's not just him. The police and the air traffic control people have to give permission as well. And it's presumably it's just a health and safety issue rather than an incitement issue. I'll tell you what I would like to argue. If I was in the Gammon Army, I'd argue that it's very racist, this, because it's taking the mickey out of Donald Trump's skin colour.
Bright orange.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could be right there.
You see, same way gammon is. People like to say gammon is racist because they pretend it's a description of a pinkish complexion rather than a mindset. So no one's got a pinkier complexion than me, but gammon describes what's going on under the bonnet, not the colour of the bonnet. So I think...
Are we really that petty?
Yes.
That we're, so worried about balloon? Shouldn't
Yes, we are. You heard Jazzin
Trump
Crawley. He's going to take his Dwone down there.
We're introducing someone into this country who thinks it's okay to take young children, babies, away from their parents. Should we be welcoming someone like that? A balloon over London, who gives a damn?
Well, lots of people do, apparently. Loosely described as the Gammon Army. I have to confess, I just did a bit of a double take because we will be shortly continuing our conversation about why the Gammon Army is so enraged by the giant orange balloon that may fly. I'll still be surprised if it does, with security details and helicopters flying in and out of Westminster to mark the visit of Donald Trump. A lot of you are sending me pictures of the Ronald Reagan spitting image puppets, which do rather undermine the arguments that there's something fundamentally wrong in mocking the leader of America publicly. Maybe there's a difference between television and a lawn in Westminster. But the reason I did a double take is I glanced at the switchboard and saw that the former Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg is up next. And I remembered we did actually invite him onto the programme to talk about Brexit in the first hour, so he's not here to talk about the Donald Trump balloon. And I may not press him on that issue because I'm keener to find out something you tweeted earlier today, Nick Clegg. Many thanks for your time today.
Sorry to interrupt the balloon conversation.
it might be a blessing, actually, as it happens. You have tweeted, and I think I understand why, but I wanted to get a little bit more explanation from you. I hate to say this, but Brexiters would be right to reject the Prime Minister's plan. Dual EU-UK tariffs would create vast red tape, smugglers would boom, Parliament would be humiliated, MPs would rubber stamp goods agriculture rules from Brussels, their right to refuse would never be used as the costs would be too high. But that posits the possibility, or perhaps it doesn't, that Theresa May could put together something better.
Well, of course she could. She could, in a sense, dispense with all this sort of hair-splitting and sort of agonisingly convoluted schemes, which might make sense on a piece of paper, but will disintegrate with the first contact with reality, and instead say, look, if you really want frictionless trade, the way to do that is to stay in the single market and the customs union. And so in a sense, of course she could do so. She's not able to do that because she can't do so politically. What I don't think we should sort of dignify this proposal, as much as I understand it from what ministers said on the radio this morning and elsewhere, is to sort of suggest that this is a coherent or workable way forward. It's not. It's the kind of worst of all worlds. We keep being told that, Brexit is going to work for everyone. This will work for nobody because it's going to be a massive boost for smugglers, because every time you have basically two levels of taxes, which is what will now come into effect under this scheme. So you'd have an EU external tax tariff and a UK-wide one that always allows for smugglers and criminal gangs and others to kind of play the difference, if you like. It'll be an absolute field day for lawyers because it's going to be fearfully complicated. It's going to try and separate off services from goods when increasingly goods and services kind of go hand in hand. It's going to mean that our MPs, far from taking control, will be in the humiliating position of having to rubber stamp rules made in Brussels, which we previously actually had a hand in designing, but we will now have to sort of passively accept. Of course it's going to have an effect. I mean, ministers have tried to deny this, but of course it's going to make it much harder to strike new trade deals with Australia, America, and all the rest of it. You can't say on the one hand we'll basically abide by European standards and then we'll have a trade deal with other countries on the basis of completely different standards. It's just logically impossible. So I just don't think this is going to satisfy anyone. Brexit voters, I'm obviously not one of them, but
you haven't had a change of heart. No,
not a bit of it. But if I was a Brexit voter though, I would have some sympathy. I think they'd be absolutely livid with this because it would remove control from Parliament. It would introduce lashings of red tape when we were told that leaving the European Union would lead to less red tape. It'll lead to an increase in criminality. It'll mean less clear way forward in terms of trade deals with other countries. So I just don't see really what it does, other than, as ever, simply try and paper over the cracks within the Conservative Party. But surely at this stage of the proceedings, we shouldn't be worried so much about the internal dynamics of the Conservative Party. We should be worried about whether this is right or not for the country. And on that basis, it clearly isn't.
But Theresa May knows it isn't. And you said yourself the reason why she can't say that publicly is because of, well, both party management and, I mean, you didn't say this, but I will, fear of the media. So is this...
Wouldn't it be great, though, if she, rather than sort of coming out onto the perfectly manicured lawn of Chequers this evening, or the beautiful gravel drive, and saying, peace in our times, white smoke has emerged, I finally struck a deal which keeps both David Lidington and Boris Johnson happy. I mean, in the great scheme of things, who cares? Who cares about all these jokers, what they think? What we care about is whether this is right for our kids and our grandkids, and it clearly isn't. And wouldn't it be great if she said, look, I've tried my damnedest, I've tried so hard for the last 2 years. There is simply no way to do this in a way which I think is right for my country. That's why I'm going to go back to the country and say that we should put it back to the country for another vote, or she should just bite the bullet and say, look, I can't get agreement with all these awkward people around the cabinet table. The best thing to do, short of actually being a member of the European Union, is being a member of the Single Market and Customs Union. And if you don't like it, well, back me or sack me. It would be so much more straightforward.
Do you think she will?
If she did that.
Well, what do you think the likelihood is of that happening in the next 3 or 4 years?
Of her doing that, close to zilch. But
then the can just gets kicked further down the road, because you talk about papering over the cracks. The cracks are going to consume the paper at some point, and I'd love to know when you think that point will be, because I thought it might be in the next few days.
Well, I think never underestimate people's ingenuity in constantly kicking the can down the road. I suspect, given that she's, obviously flown around Europe and gone to The Hague and to Berlin, that the European leaders will kind of bite their tongues and be sort of polite. But I can tell you, I know enough about the way that Brussels works to think that they will look at this and think, why on earth should we sign up to this? Why should we sign up to basically having the United Kingdom become a tax collector for our tariffs? So-called voluntarily signing up to our standards, but somehow retaining the threat that they might depart from those standards. Why should we then give the United Kingdom a free pass into our vast 500 million consumer market? So I don't, as it happens, as I say, I suspect that the response will be more diplomatic from Brussels. I don't actually think this would fly in the negotiating room. What's so tragic about all of this is that our once great country is flailing around, wasting everybody's time, trying to paper over the cracks amongst a very, very small bunch of self-appointed fanatics around the cabinet table. And meanwhile, the national interest is going neglected.
But the one thing we don't know, none of us know this, even those of us who've been banging our heads against this particular brick wall for 2 years, is you don't know how much of the 17-odd million people, that small faction of headbangers in the cabinet, actually represent. And I'm beginning to wonder whether perhaps even Theresa May overestimates the scale of support for the Boris Johnson's position now would be, if he was asked to come up with an alternative plan, it would be to just close your eyes and run in whatever direction you're facing. He hasn't put anything substantive on the table.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you, I strongly agree with you in one important respect, and it is this, is that if you listen to the Michael Goves, and Boris Johnson, Nigel Farages, these people it's really odd. They talk as if nothing has happened since the 23rd of June 2016. They don't seem to realise how much the world has changed. We're about to have a visit next week from a US president who is in effect now declared that he wants to undo the European Union, wants to undo the international rule of law, wants to undermine NATO, wants to basically turn his back on the World Trade Organization. This is astonishing. No one knew in the summer of 2016 that our once great ally in Washington would basically launch a trade war against us. I think what that means is that lots of people, even people who may have not felt very strongly about it, but on balance sort of tick the Brexit box, I think what people do realise now is that the world is a more dangerous place, a more fragile place. We are more friendless. We do not have an alliance across the Atlantic which we can rely upon as we could in the past. In other words, there is safety in numbers in being part of this European club, however flawed it is. And the fact that they've seen over 2 years that our government's not been able to come up with any coherent answers, that we're going to be spending money when we were told we wouldn't. We will, one way or another, be abiding by European Court of Justice rulings when we told we wouldn't. We will not be able to hermetically seal our borders when we were told we could. I think all of that, of course, it doesn't mean that everybody then changes their minds. I do think it means that people appreciate now it's a whole lot more complex, costly and convoluted than they were told at the time.
Finally, Nick Clegg, where do you think we'll be on Monday?
Oh, I don't know. I've given up trying. Thankfully, because I'm no longer in sort of active politics. I don't follow it with the kind of with the detail.
All right, then I'll ask you. Go on.
I personally don't think strategically anything will have changed between now and Monday. Of course, the media gets wildly excited because it's a behind closed door meeting, and they do lots of this person may have said this to that person. At the end of the day, all we do know is that this is just another attempt by Theresa May to persuade people around the cabinet table that her fudge is better than the previous form of fudge that they were presented with. It's still fudge, and it is still fudge that will be costly, complicated, bureaucratic. The only people who are going to benefit, by the way, from this scheme, if it ever went ahead, would be smugglers and lawyers.
And people who bet on the pound crashing.
and perhaps people betting on UK PLC not doing well. Surely that tells you enough.
Well, it does me, but I'm not sure that that's necessarily the relevant audience. Before you go, how do they divvy up the bedrooms at Chequers? How will they be allocating the keys this weekend?
I never stayed overnight at Chequers.
Shut up, really?
No,
that's
never,
outrageous.
Ever.
Couldn't you see what was happening? They didn't even invite you to Chequers, Clegg.
No, don't worry. I was very happy not to stay overnight. But so I'm afraid on that particular detail of how governments work, I can't help you.
Outrageous. Nick Clegg, former Deputy Prime Minister. Many thanks indeed. A lot of you feeling very sorry for Nick Clegg never having stayed the night at Chequers. Don't. He had his own grace and favour sort of quasi-stately home. Is it called Chevening? I can't remember. I can't expect me to know everything, honestly. But I do know I was wrong this morning. It's something you don't often hear me say. I tweeted earlier today at 8:25 a.m. the Trump blimp is perfect. Classic British mockery instead of angry protests. And Trump fans here they keep telling us, far too robust and unsnowflakey to take offence at something as silly as a balloon. Everyone's a winner. So it's a wonderful way to articulate a profound disgust at one of the most despicable men ever to hold public office in a democracy. And what I just did then, that's freedom of speech, that thing you really like and value and defend. It's also, I would argue, is probably academically provable. But instead of running the risk of violence or the kind of confected conflicts that the Russian bot army managed to create in the run-up to the American election, we'll do it the British way. We'll do it in the style of Morecambe and Wise and Monty Python, and the young ones. We'll put a hilarious balloon of an orange man in a nappy in the sky, and if you'd like, if you're comfortable with self-confessed multiple bankrupt sex offenders who rip children from their parents and lock them in cages, if you're cool with that, I mean, you have the right to be. You just don't look up. If you're not, if you think it is probably the most disgusting thing you've witnessed in Britain or America in your entire life, as I do, then we kind of get to do it in the old-fashioned way. We point and laugh. But I got it completely wrong. People are furious, absolutely furious. Some of them are so furious they're going to get their drone and fly it into the balloon on the day that it happens, even though they didn't know what day it was that it was going to happen. And I know how the 2-minute hate works, and I know that there is a racist subtext to this, because some of the newspapers have decided to put it all on Sadiq Khan, who has a... so Donald Trump can stand up and describe London hospitals as a war zone, or Donald Trump can describe our country in incredibly despicable terms. Donald Trump can retweet fake propaganda from a far-right hate group that's actually, I think, now been outlawed in this country, certainly been removed from Twitter. He can do all of that. He can abuse a disabled journalist. He can abuse the parents of a dead soldier, the so-called Gold Star families. He can boast about grabbing women by the vagina. He can describe political opponents in the most despicable and vile of ways, while simultaneously trumpeting his admiration of murderous despots like Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin. He can do all of that, and you can like him. But if you're going to get your panties in a knot over the fact that there's a big balloon in the sky of him in a nappy, you really should check yourself, shouldn't you? It's a balloon of an orange man-child in a nappy. You're going to get cross about that and not get cross about all the stuff that he does. And I think that's the psychological answer, isn't it? Because if we allow the mockery, this is why totalitarian regimes and despots and authoritarians hate mockery. Erdogan wouldn't allow this, Putin wouldn't allow this, Kim Jong-un wouldn't allow this, and they're probably the 3 leaders on the planet at the moment that Donald Trump most envies. And why wouldn't they allow it? Because if you allow the seed of truth to be sown, even in the minds of the most bovine and hate-filled, they end up feeling ridiculous for supporting someone so patently ridiculous. And there's a very thin line between ridiculous and evil. A very thin line. I think Hannah Arendt called it the banality of evil. It is why they get to rise. We laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh, and then suddenly they're opening concentration camps. And it's not funny anymore. But the idea that we would be banned from laughing, banned from mocking, prevented from teasing... Oh, man. This is the United Kingdom. Jason's in Southend-on-Sea. Jason, what would you like to say?
Hey, James. How are you doing?
I'm very well. You sound American.
I am American.
Nothing gets past me.
I've been living in your great country for 5 years.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful place.
You're telling me.
Except for all of what's happening now with Brexit dividing the country. And with my country, it's hard to watch the news every day and see what the president is doing to divide and to, destroy the faith that people had in one another, it seems. But I love the balloon. I think the balloon is wonderful, and the people that had this idea, I have to applaud them, because I agree with what you were saying.
What would the protesters rather? What would the people what would the anti-balloon brigade prefer? Would they? I mean, because the protests.
Maybe they would prefer to have big rallies, for Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson, the way that Trump has throughout the United States, where he gets a bunch of cheerleaders and they start to have their, racist, fascist, bigoted parties. I don't know.
No, I don't know either. I mean, do you ever have moments in life where you kind of wonder how you've ended up where you've ended up, and you just try and track back and think, oh dear, I took a wrong turn there? Imagine waking up today and being enraged about a balloon.
Well, I think the laughter, and this is really, laughter is a sign of intelligence when you're faced with such a surreal reality as we're faced with now in the U.S. and the U.K., and we have to laugh at it, and it's really, what else can we do, except cry and yell at the news. I mean...
Well, you ask a rhetorical question, and you're right. I mean, laughter is the best medicine, isn't it? And this is a particularly vile illness, and it's, at the moment, the only medicine available. We've barely mentioned the chief of Airbus describing ministers having no clue on Brexit. I'd file that under Jason's school of, what are you going to do if you don't laugh? David's in Worcester Park. David, have you got a problem with balloons?
No, I haven't got a problem with balloons, James, and I'm really happy to follow an American caller, but there is one thing that worries me. I'm not enraged by balloons. I love political satire and mockery. Nobody deserves more mockery than Trump. I love the cartoons of Trump with a toilet seat instead of a blonde barnet on top of his head that you find in The Guardian. And so everything was fine. The one thing that worries me is how this is going to play in America, because it's only the American voters who, unless there's an impeachment, who can get rid of Trump in 2.5 years' time. And what I fear is that Trump will turn this whole stunt, and it is a major stunt, and it will turn him in his favor. And that, there's no such thing as bad publicity. And that...
That's not true.
And that some voters in the U.S. who might have been tempted to vote against him next time.
Because he might be a great big orange man-child, but he's our great big orange man-child.
Correct.
Yes,
correct.
That's an interesting point.
That worries me, and I've got a real dilemma. Of course it can't be. Of course we have a right to float balloons and spitting image puppets.
I think I can reassure you, he'll never mention it.
Well, I wish you were right.
He'll never... Well, what have I been wrong about in the last 2 years, David?
Well, you haven't been wrong about much, because I do listen to you a lot, otherwise I wouldn't be calling you. But,
he won't mention it, because he can't mention it, because even if he was clever enough, and he might be, or clever's not quite the right word, but we'll stay with it. Even if he was clever enough to somehow turn it into a positive, it would involve telling everybody that he got teased by an entire city, and it would involve him disseminating an image of him in a nappy, and he's never going to do that.
He doesn't need to tell anybody, James.
Well, how's he going to use it as a weapon, then?
Every major U.S. network, especially CNN, will be broadcasting pictures of this balloon.
And America will laugh.
Like your previous caller, will applaud it. And a lot of people who voted against him will do that. It's the sort of floating people in the States who have to vote.
No, I like your analysis. You're saying it's the equivalent of, we can slag off our own families, but if you say anything rude about my family, I'm going to chin you. But I just don't think that there are people in America who could be persuaded that because a few Brits flew a great big balloon of Donald Trump in the sky, they're suddenly going to hold their nose and vote for someone who puts babies in cages.
Fair enough, okay.
Right, we'll come back, shall we, in a couple of years and see who called it right.
Indeed.
Although hopefully he will have been impeached by then and we'll never have to wait for an election to find out. 11:58 is the time. Paul is in Braintree. Paul, how cross are you?
I'm a bit annoyed, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I got a letter from the council because of a George flag.
Yes, but it's there. Well, that's awful.
Sorry?
But is it their property that you live in?
No, it's not. It's my own property.
Well, then they can't tell you that you have to take a flag down.
No, they recommended that I take it down because it would be classified as a racist thing.
Then ignore them. Can you send me the letter? Have you got it there? Can you read it to me?
I'm literally on the M25, man. I did tell you lady that. I'm literally on the M25.
So you got a letter off the council recommending that you take down your St George's flag, but they have no power to do so because you don't live in a council property.
Yeah, their exact words were along the line of, it may be taken as a negative I can't remember the exact word, but...
No, but you do. You said their exact words were along the lines of, so I knew they weren't going to be exact.
It could be taken down. It could be taken in a negative fashion.
Right. But it's your house.
Yes, I appreciate that.
And did you take it down?
No, I haven't took it down.
But you're cross about the balloon.
Yeah, I am.
All right, mate. Have a lovely weekend, Paul.
Oh, so you're not going to let me have an opinion? That's not...
I've just heard your opinion, and now I'm laughing at it.
No.
That's what freedom of speech is all about. You've got an opinion, I'm laughing at it. And well done for keeping your flag up. I look forward to you emailing me that letter. james@lbc.co.uk. It's coming up to 12 noon. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Drive carefully, Paul. Seriously. Keep an eye on the road. We will in the next hour probably take a few more of these calls, especially if they're as good as that one. Or, and both, there's a suggestion. This is really interesting, actually. The Church of England needs to raise some money. Congregations are down. So it has been mooted, contemplating flogging off a few cathedrals. I'd love to buy a cathedral, but I don't think I've got enough money. What would you do with them? I do also want to talk about selling cathedrals. I'd quite like... would you laugh at me if I told you I've always wanted to live in a church? Sometimes when I'm in church and I get a bit bored, which doesn't happen very often, our Father who art in heaven, I plan how I'd transform it into a house. I sort of think, well, I'd put a floor in there, but the problem is in old-fashioned churches is the size of the windows. So you would actually have to split a window in half, and then I don't know how that would work in terms of the floor. But I quite often start doing a bit of a kind of, Kirsty Allsop in a church. No, it's more Nick Knowles, actually, isn't it? I digress slightly. Back to the big balloon and why it has upset so many people. Paul's in Manchester. Paul, how upset are you?
James, listen.
I am.
It's the reason why they're allowed to do this is because of the democratic right to free speech. So they're allowed to do this because of the democratic right to free speech. For 2 years, they've been destroying the democratic right of 17.4 million people, including MPs.
Who has?
Right? So
who has?
Well, everybody, all the snowflakes that have been saying, we want this, we want that, we want.
So they don't have a democratic right to free speech. The snowflakes.
Well. Where's the democratic... How can the democratic right only come from one side?
Well, it doesn't. You've just described two sides.
We're being told that we're racist.
Yeah.
And that we didn't know what we was doing.
Well, that's free speech. That's free speech.
It's not free speech.
It is, isn't it?
Because 17.4 million people didn't have the right to say what they wanted.
Of course they did, and they said it.
Say what they wanted, and when they did say what they wanted to happen...
We're talking about balloons. We're talking about balloons.
Yeah. Well, the second point on that.
Oh yeah, good.
I've only got 2 points.
Well, I don't know that we've actually hit one yet, Paul. To be honest with you.
The second point.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've been watching EastEnders, but they've been portraying on screen about the death of a young boy that's been stabbed.
Right.
And how that reacts on the family. Instead of Lord Mayor Khan and his office and the police turning around and saying, oh, yeah, that's a great thing to do. Why don't they get off the bums and stop knife crime and save people's lives?
How would that... I mean, no one's going to argue about the importance of tackling knife crime, but how would not flying the balloon, do you think, reduce knife crime?
Well, they're making light when they've got more important things to be doing.
Well, it's literally a signature. It's literally a signature on a piece of paper. I'm intrigued as to how not having a balloon of Donald Trump flying would reduce knife. How would it reduce knife crime?
Well, 10,000 people signed this petition. 17.4 million people signed a referendum.
Yes, but you're not. You don't think you should be allowed to criticise the 10,000 people who signed the petition because you don't think other people should be allowed to criticise the 17.4 million who voted to leave the European Union. You can't have it both ways, Paul. Anyway, you said you had 2 points. You said you had 2 points. You said you had 2 points. Let's hear the first one.
Well, the first one is that we have a democratic society, therefore people's views should be allowed on both sides.
You're exactly right. So fly the balloon. So fly the balloon.
17.4 million people said they wanted to leave the EU. right?
Some of them wanted to be like Norway. Some of them wanted to be like Switzerland. Some of them wanted to keep freedom of movement. Some of them thought that we'd be able to stay in the customs union. 22% of them thought there was only a slight risk of having to leave the single market. So they didn't all vote for the same thing, Paul. Or am I denigrating your democratic freedom by pointing out that what you say isn't really true?
No, you're not, because that's your view.
So that's back. It's not my view, mate. Those are facts.
Well, okay, that's your fact.
No. Those are the facts. They're your facts as well. They're all our facts.
The EU,
they're the only
right?
facts.
Since then, look what's happening now. We're not going to be leaving the EU.
Well, I don't know that that's true, but of course, what you're really cross about, and I did hope that we would be talking about balloons this hour, but what you're really cross about is all the people.
It's absolutely disgraceful that we're putting a balloon up against Donald Trump.
But it's freedom of speech.
No, yeah, well, okay. So why didn't we have freedom of speech when the Saudis came over?
We did. There was a massive protest outside 10 Downing Street. I went down there myself.
They didn't put balloons in the sky.
Well, no one applied to. They could have done. No one applied to. So you want more balloons? I don't understand, Paul. So you think we should have had more balloons? You're cross that there's only one balloon for Donald Trump. You wanted one for the Saudi Crown Prince as well.
Well, for all of them, yeah.
So your complaint is there aren't enough. So you've ring in to say there aren't enough balloons mocking foreign leaders.
Well, if you're going to do it for one, you've got to do it for them all.
Well then, where is your crowdfunding petition, mate?
I'm not a crowdfunding petition.
Well, that's how this one happened. This is how it happened.
Yeah, well, if that's
so you are literally free, as a citizen of this democratic country, you're literally free to pay for and apply to float a balloon about anyone you want in this country. So maybe you should do that.
Like Nick Ferrari's turned around and said previously, right? It's a good job we're not at war, because then people would have something really to worry about.
Which people would?
Crowdfunding permissions to put...
Mate, come on. I'd never speak ill of colleagues, but the idea... Well, no, and I won't speak ill of Nick, but you think we should be at war because people think a balloon is funny?
No, I think that if we was at war, people would have much more serious things to worry about than putting a balloon in the sky.
But you've rung in literally because you're so worried about the balloon in the sky.
Well, yeah, what's wrong with Donald Trump?
No, you've literally rung in to complain about the balloon, and then in the space of 5 minutes you've said we should be at war so that people don't get so worked up about something as silly as a balloon. You're literally describing yourself now, Paul. Yes.
If we were at war,
yes,
people would have much more to worry about than putting a balloon in the sky.
But I'm not worried about the balloon in the sky, and we're not at war. You're worried about it. Why do you need a war? Why do you need a war to stop being worried about the balloon, Paul?
Everything's going so left-wing. Everything's going all nice. So, we'll bring back flower power and all go and sit in the park and all.
Damn with being nice to people. Why do you need a war to stop being cross about the balloon? I'm just interested.
Because then you'd have to worry about things like getting your kids to an air raid show.
No. Here's the thing. Listen to me, Paul.
Sure you've got potatoes growing in your garden so you can eat.
Yes. No. These are all. I've got potatoes growing in my allotment, and I'm not at war.
There you go. No, but if there was one, you'd be prepared.
I'd be growing more potatoes.
What would the others do?
Well, I'd probably, depending on who we were fighting against, I'd probably try to sign up. But listen, I'm going to give you some really helpful advice, all right?
Go on.
You don't need to go to war to stop being cross about the balloon, Paul. What you do now is you just say, Paul, stop being cross about the balloon. Let's try it.
No, what we need...
No, stop it. This is my good deed for the day, Paul.
Bows and arrows to go up and pop the balloon.
Paul, well, no, because that would be silly. And that wouldn't...
Right.
But because you're trying to not be angry about the... You're trying to not be angry about the balloon, Paul. So going down there and getting arrested for having an offensive weapon in a public place would make the situation worse, not better. So I'm going to try and help you...
We've got soldiers that can do that.
We've got soldiers that can do that as well. Well, I mean, maybe they wouldn't be there if we were at war. So here's the thing. You have chosen to be angry about a balloon. You have somehow persuaded yourself that you wouldn't be angry about the balloon if only we were at war. I, because I love you, am very keen to explain to you that you don't have to be angry about the balloon with a war in the background. You could just stop being angry about the balloon because being angry about the balloon is stupid.
It's all full of hot air, isn't it?
Well, it is, yes, Paul.
Are
you less angry now than when you? Are you less angry now than when you rang in?
You've calmed me down, James.
Paul, that is what I'm here for. All right, now.
It's still wrong.
Well, it's not really. It's a balloon.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on.
Can we put a balloon up of Sadiq Khan?
Of course you can, Matt. We've been through this. You start the petition, you crowdfund the money, you find enough people who want to do it as well, and I will defend it. I will laugh at it.
There's a crowdfunding page already up and going for...
Get your money in there. Well, actually, don't. Keep your money in your pocket, because you could spend it on something a bit more constructive. But spread it around. Spread the word. Spread the word.
Potatoes for the war.
Yeah, we save your potatoes for the war, Paul. Mind how you go. It's coming up to 12:15. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where my mission in life is to blow out the blue touch paper so easily ignited by those who play a little bit fast and loose with the truth and see the opportunity of enraging people as a, well, I don't know, kind of like a career move. I think we're going to carry on, aren't we? I kind of think we have to. It's 12:15. I suppose the world divides along two lines. Those of us who don't think you should get angry about... There's three groups now. Those of us who don't think you should get angry about a big balloon of Donald Trump. Those of us who think you should get angry about a big balloon of Donald Trump, but can't really explain why. And those of us who think you should get angry about a big balloon of Donald Trump, but you wouldn't get angry if at least we were at war. I'm glad that Paul and I parted giggling, because, and this is the opposite of patronising, actually, what I'm going to say now. I understand that with the right information and the right persuasion, people like Paul can almost bring themselves to laugh at the position that they were originally in. People who are trying to tell you that the Donald Trump balloon is some appalling affront or some appalling offence, while simultaneously being apologists for the child catcher-in-chief, they also understand how easy it is to persuade people to a certain position. It's just that the position I try to persuade people to is the truth. And the position they try to persuade people to is usually a self-serving or self-enriching falsehood, or indeed an alternative fact, as you may prefer. And that's how you can end up contemplating people in public life making comments about this being the worst offence ever visited upon an American president, while conveniently overlooking the, I'm going to embarrass myself historically now, the two who've been assassinated, or let's just say the one who has been assassinated in living memory. Could you imagine that? A balloon? But we will continue, because I find it fascinating psychologically how people who are nice and decent and intelligent are really, really cross about a balloon. Brendan's in Portsmouth. Brendan, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. Yeah, self-confessed gammon-faced middle-aged man.
Me too, mate. But gammon is a state of mind, not a state of facial.
Not too similar to yourself,
yes.
But where we do part company is, despite having an excellent sense of humour, I actually don't like the idea of the balloon. I can understand the hostility against it. You've just had Nick Clegg on saying that the world's becoming a bit more isolationist and, trade wars and everything else. I just can't understand how doing this sort of thing can advance sort of like the principle of friendship.
You can't make friends with Donald. You can't make friends.
There are lots of...
I'm going to have to speak at some point.
That don't get it. They just see what they see on the TV. They don't understand really what's underneath the bonnet and such. Like, it feels to me very much like a personal battle now between Sadiq Khan and Donald Trump as well.
And the Met Police and the Air Traffic Control Office.
Yeah,
because the right-wing media is trying to make you see it as a personal battle. You'd need to find evidence of Sadiq Khan turning down similar-sized blimps, but clearing this one for it to be even anything remotely resembling that. But I don't want you to fall into that trap, because the police and the air... Do you think the police and the air traffic control are having a personal battle with Donald Trump as well? Mate, I'm talking to you.
Around it. I understand you are, mate. I understand that.
But you've got to slow down a little bit, because you've already said a couple of things that aren't true.
Okay, mate, all right.
So do you think the police...
If your father-in-law were to come around your house for the first time, the very first time that you'd ever met him before, do you think it would be common courtesy to put a balloon up of him in the living room, paint him orange with a giant nappy on? How do you think that relationship would develop?
Does he publicly abuse disabled people?
James, you've got to respect the office.
I'm asking you a question. No, you're talking about my father-in-law. So I'm asking you a question. Does he publicly abuse disabled people?
I don't believe that happened, and that was in the campaign before he became president of the United States.
So either did it not happen, or did it happen in the campaign before he became president? Because you just said both.
If from what you're referring to happened during the course of the campaign.
So did this man abuse disabled people? So did this man abuse disabled people before he became my father-in-law?
I've got no idea. But James, answer the question.
Mate, it's your analogy.
Put a balloon up, and do you think that's common courtesy?
Well, yes, if he routinely abuses disabled people and grabs women by the vagina, then yes, I would probably seek
And
to...
how is that helping things in the climate of Brexit?
Well, because if you don't stand up to it, you encourage and
the economy, though, James.
Brendan, I know you thought you had some brilliant points, but every time I deal with one, you try and move on to another one.
What's it going to do for the economy?
What's what going to do for the economy?
Isolating the United States.
Mate, he's just launched a trade war against his closest allies.
Okay, James, all right. You don't seem to have an answer, so I'm quite happy to...
I don't have an answer to what, Brendan?
Well, you're not really answering... I mean,
I've answered all your questions. What would you do if your father-in-law came round and I said, well, well, no, you're talking over me. Do you want me to answer your questions or not, Brendan?
Go on then, go ahead.
Okay, so would I put up a balloon mocking my father-in-law if he was a serial sex pest, if he boasted about grabbing women by the vagina, if he routinely abused and mocked disabled people in public, if he took the mickey out of the families of a dead American or indeed British soldier, if he endorsed a policy and introduced a policy that separated babies from their children and threw them in cages in latter-day concentration camps? I don't think I would put up a balloon, Brendan, because I wouldn't let him into my house, even if however much I loved his daughter, and I'm fairly confident that I couldn't have fallen in love with a woman who was comfortable with that kind of behaviour, even if it was
Trump is guilty of all those things.
Yes, I've seen it all. I've heard the tape of him boasting about being a sex offender. I've seen him mocking disabled people on television, and I've read the order that Jeff Sessions introduced on April the 6th, 2018. And do you know what the really interesting thing is, Brendan?
Go on.
You could see it all as well if you opened your eyes.
Oh, I can see quite a lot, James. I can see that you've been quite along about a lot of things politically in the past, such as your original support for Boris Johnson, which you've later reneged on and assassinated his character.
But do you know why? Because I can admit when I'm wrong. That's something else. That's something else you can learn from.
Because you didn't research it properly, despite the fact that you're sitting on a national platform.
What do you mean I didn't research it properly? I researched everything properly. I didn't know as much about it then as I did now because I didn't think the country would be stupid enough to go down this road. So to be clear, your argument is, when you rang in, you thought, I'll ask him if he'd put up a balloon of his father-in-law in his living room on his first visit, and I've pointed out to you that that would not be anywhere near enough a strong enough opposition to the behaviour that we know Donald Trump has undertaken, and now you're talking to me about Boris Johnson.
So why do you support Sadiq Khan? Why do you support Brendan Cox? These people have done things equally as wrong, but you have them in your studio, don't you?
I have condemned Brendan Cox for his allegations of sexual assault. I dedicated an entire hour of the programme to it. What are you accusing Sadiq Khan of doing?
After knife crimes off the scale in London, James.
It's off the scale in every city in the country. I condemn Brendan. What exactly has Sadiq Khan done that you're accusing him of?
Well, I think the Mayor of London isn't doing a very good job of reducing knife crime.
So do I.
I think it's higher than it's ever been before.
So do I.
It's pretty poor.
So do I. But what are you accusing him of?
Of doing a pretty poor job, James. That's what I just said.
Well, so I agree with you. The knife crime is out of control. Something needs to be done. We can argue about who's ultimately responsible, but it's happening on the Mayor's watch. But you rang in about a balloon, Brendan. It's almost as if you've realised your balloon has burst and now you're desperately scrabbling around for anything that might make you sound vaguely credible.
No, I think the balloon is the opposite. I think it stuck. Yeah?
What?
The opposite of blow.
It stuck?
I think it actually stuck. It's a bad idea. We shouldn't go ahead with it. I'm pretty sure that somebody will deflate it on the day anyway, even if it does go ahead.
Well, I think we all know what that will sound like. I think we all know what that will sound like, Brendan. The sound of deflation.
Very good, James.
On your jog. David is in Amsterdam. David, what would you like to say?
I have two questions.
Good Lord, I have about 411 after that, but you go first.
Listen, I have a serious job. I need to... Let's have this serious conversation. How many balloons they made?
One.
Only one?
Yes.
That's a shame.
Well, how many do you want us to have? I can't really hear what you're saying, David. I don't know whether the phone line is bad.
I think the phone line is bad.
That's better. That's better. So why do you think people are... Why are you angry about the balloon?
No, I'm having fun since yesterday.
Well, why do you think people like Brendan are so angry about it?
They're taking it too serious. Where is this British sense of humour, for God's sake? It's the balloon.
I know.
Why people are so wind up about it? It's a balloon.
I know, but knife crime.
What?
I don't know. I'm just telling you what the thing is that you're supposed to say now. Anyway, we need to be nice to him. What would you laugh at your father-in-law if he boasted about sexually assaulting women? or something like that. I don't know.
No. That's not even you're comparing apples and pears over here.
Come over here, co-opting our figures of speech. I need to get inside the mind of somebody who genuinely is angry about it, but doesn't sound completely tonto like Brendan. Is there a reason?
There is. It's the same reason for Brexit. It's the same reason why you have this populist in Europe here. And you have to ask this question, why we are so wind up in the islands, in the UK, and we don't see it here in the continent.
Well, I suspect it's got something to do with the coffee shops in Amsterdam, hasn't it?
No, I haven't been in a coffee shop.
I'm only joking. I'm doing a cheap joke. Honestly, won't everybody lighten up? It's political correctness gone mad. If you can't make a joke about everyone in Holland being stoned these days, then I don't know when you can. Well, you tell me. You tell me why you think it is, because I think it's probably linked slightly to English language media, and it's a lot easier for far-right Americans with sort of dodgy billionaires backing them and Russians to manipulate our social media and media because it's conducted mostly in English. But that might just be a bit of a cop-out on my part.
Yeah, absolutely right over here. The last time I saw Brexit on a Dutch and a German newspaper, it was months ago.
Yeah.
And in London, when I come in the weekend to work, it's everywhere.
Yeah, and it's misrepresented. So again, it is the ghost train argument, perhaps, rather than the journalism argument. Make people angry, and you think back to Potato Paul from Manchester, furious about the balloon and not really sure why, or Brendan in Portsmouth, furious about the balloon, but not really sure why until you sort of dig down into it a little bit and you realise exactly why he's furious about the balloon, because his hero is being held up as ridiculous. And if your hero is ridiculous, what the hell are you? It's coming up to 12:30. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I shall continue with this. I feel like pineapple. Do you get that? I feel like a tin of pineapple rings. That's what I feel like a tin of pineapple. Yeah, there you go. You got there in the end. Where it's like the good old days. All the people who haven't got the guts to ring me about Brexit have suddenly discovered their cojones and are ringing me about an enormous balloon featuring Donald Trump in a nappy. Oh, this is magnificent. Bring me my chariot. Bring me my bow. 0345 6060 973. Ray's in Billericay. Why has the balloon upset you, Ray?
Because it's disrespectful.
To whom?
To the country, to the Queen. I don't mind people being mocked in spitting image, in cartoons and things like that. That's fine. But you've got a leader of the biggest country in the world that saved us in 2 world wars, and you're mocking the man.
Yes, mocking the man, not the country. Donald Trump. No, Ray. Donald Trump dodged the draft.
People, if you don't agree with them, you cut them off, as you did about 10 minutes ago, and this is what I'm going to do with you.
Go on then, Ray. Oh no, Ray! Oh no! Oh, what am I going to do with this slice of pineapple now? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. If you haven't got an argument, don't ring in. If you think you've got an argument, especially if you're certain you've got an argument, especially if it involves a father-in-law or something, ring in and we'll have some fun together. Stuart's in Burnley. Stuart, what's going on?
Hiya, can you just give me a sec?
Oh, what are you up to, mate?
I'm just pulling up.
Oh.
Sorry, I set off because you kept me waiting.
That's all right. No, well, sorry, the phone lines have gone nuts. Why are you cross about the balloon?
No, I never said I was cross, to be honest. No, I just find it hilarious, to be honest, really.
Oh. Well, you're no fun. So do I.
Well, no, hang on.
Oh,
First of all,
yeah.
me and you were polar opposites, yeah? I voted Leave. I'm a Trump supporter.
What do you like about... What do you mean... When you say you're a Trump supporter, what do you mean?
I mean, I just looked at the way the election was going in America and made my decision.
Yeah, but what do you support? What is it about him you support?
Well, I support some of his policies. I don't like everything about him.
Which policies do you support?
I like the fact that he's trying to control his borders. I also like the fact that he's taking on some of the big businesses with trade, you know.
When you say he's taking on what people keep telling me is that everything he's doing at the border, apart from ripping the babies from their mothers and putting them in cages, Obama did as well.
Come on, James.
3 million people, but Barack Obama deported 3 million illegal immigrants, but nobody ever mentions that. But when you say he's taking on big business, what do you mean by that?
Well, he's standing up to people that haven't been stood up to before. I mean, the European Union. You know, have you ever heard the European Union?
No, big business, Stuart.
Well, you're saying the European Union is not big business?
Yeah, I am. I'm saying the European Union is the European Union. So what big businesses is he standing? What big businesses is he standing up to?
The European Union is a massive business.
Well, it's not, is it? It's a political union. It's a single market. Big business. You're standing up to big business.
Hang on a minute.
I am. I'm hanging on. I'll hang on as long as you want,
Yeah,
Stuart.
but you've been. Hang on. Well, if you let me speak, you've been promoting that the European Union is the dog's dangly bits for ages. So now you.
No, I haven't. I haven't, though, Stuart. I think the European Union is deeply flawed, but it's a hell of a lot better than closing your eyes and running into the nearest wall.
Yeah, but it's an example. He's taking them on.
How is he taking them on?
He's got them. He's got them rattled.
No, Stuart. How is he taking them on? What's he done? What policy do you?
He's making sure that the trade that goes on is equal.
No, he's not. He's doing the opposite of that, isn't he? Because why do you think Harley Davidson has transferred production out of America?
Yeah. And Boeing are going to leave the UK.
Harley Davidson have already announced that they're moving out some production from America because of tariffs on steel coming in from China and Canada.
We've done it all before. Everybody's going to do everything, but they don't actually do it, do they?
But they already have.
What have they done so far?
They've announced that they're removing production from America because they don't want to pay for the steel under the tariffs that Donald Trump has introduced. Stuart, mate, you're supposed to be telling me about the stuff you support, and so far all you've really done is just keep saying European Union a lot.
I actually rang up to talk about a balloon.
No, I asked you why you were cross about the balloon.
I didn't, and I said I wasn't cross about the balloon.
So why do you ring in to talk about the balloon for, then?
I actually said to your person on the line that I find it hilarious.
Yeah, you told me that already, and then you moved on to other stuff about Trump.
Yeah, but tell you why I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, by the way, when I said that we were polar opposites and I voted to leave...
No, but you've done it again. You've just started talking about the balloon, and then you've gone off on a tangent, and then in 2 minutes you'll say that I didn't let you talk about the balloon. Talk about the balloon. Everyone knows we're polar opposites, Stuart. It could not be clearer.
Hang on. I want your listeners to know that I'm 2-0 up.
OK, Paul, let me tell you, Stuart is 2-0 up. For anyone who might have missed those goals because they went to make a cup of tea, Stuart is 2-0 up. Now, back to the balloon.
Right, good. Right. Now, the other thing is, the balloon.
Yes.
I find it absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, you said 4 times.
Everything that's going on with Trump, if that's the best that you've got, if that's it, a balloon, flying a balloon, it just smells of desperation from the left. Is that it? Is that what you've got, a balloon?
You think the only opposition to Donald Trump is the balloon?
Yeah. Is that what he's clinging on to, a balloon?
No, people just think it's funny, but you said that yourself.
Yeah, but the coverage of it today,
Well, the coverage on this programme has, to be fair, Stuart, and I know you're 2-0 up, so I can say this confident that I won't take the lead as a result. On this programme, the coverage has really just involved laughing at really silly people like you.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah, and let me just put you right on something. Locking children in cages. You keep repeating it and repeating it.
Have we got the footage of that? Actually, I think we have, haven't we?
Yeah,
stay there, Stuart. No. We've got the tapes from the actual camp, I think. Ready, Stuart, put your dummy in for a minute, mate.
The Border Patrol told us close to 200 people inside were minors unaccompanied by a parent. Another 500 were family units. That's parents and children. Many adults who cross the border without legal permission could be charged with illegal entry and placed in jail away from their children. Nearly 2,000 children have been taken from their parents since Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced the policy, which directs Homeland Security officials to refer all cases of illegal entry into the United States for prosecution.
¿De dónde son ustedes? ¿Y tú? Guatemala. No llores. Vas a llegar con... Mira, ella te va a explicar y te va a ayudar. ¿Cierto, Consul?
¿Qué va a pasar con su consulado hoy?
Papá.
Yo sé.
Con mi tía por lo menos para que después llegue mi mami.
¿Me puedes abrir alguien cerró la puerta esa?
Que me venga a traer mi tía para llevarme.
Ella llama a tu tía si tú tienes número y habla con tu tía.
Tengo el número de...
Pues ahorita ella te ayuda para que hable. Cálmate nada más.
No,
Voy por aquí, niña.
papá.
Cuando saquen la comida, ¿verdad?
Ay, no, papá.
Cuando saquen la comida,
que me venga.
ya voy a llegar yo cuando esté allá. Ya lo voy a meter a comer.
Papá.
Si tiene una celda, me la da, por favor.
Ay, no,
Porque van a
papá.
hacer, si se quiere juntar con ella, se junta aquí, porque voy a tener
Ay, no, papá.
o me la pone allá mejor, allá en la orillita.
No, papá.
No, va a tener que ser aquí, porque voy a meter Jimmy y se vaya
No, papá.
Go on, Stuart, say something else stupid.
That sounds like the Remainers.
There we go, well done. Paul's in Enfield. Paul, what would you like to say?
Better than that. Hi, James.
Thank you very much. 5-0 down. I'm feeling bad, man. You got any half-time oranges?
That was bad for you, actually, on that last bit.
Carry on.
The balloon thing, I think for head of state it's outrageous. Just on that basis, I find Trump bizarre. I'm not a big supporter, but I find it awful that that was the choice they had, Clinton and him. But, no, I think it's... To fly that balloon is awful. And
well, why is it awful? It's funny. What is it? I mean, what...
If Sadiq Khan hadn't just had Hezbollah march, and if we hadn't just had the Saudis, those well-known...
But they were protested as well. And you could, if you'd wanted to. Did you try and get a balloon up for the Saudi visit or for the Hezbollah? I'm not across the Hezbollah march. I probably should be. But did you try and get a balloon up for that?
No, because I wouldn't have a chance.
Well, how do you know if you never tried?
Well, I haven't got a balloon anyway.
Did you go to the Saudi? Well, they didn't have a balloon. They crowdfunded. Did you try crowdfunding?
No.
Did you start a petition?
No.
Did you go down to the protest at Downing Street when the Saudi Crown Prince was here?
No.
What exactly did you think your point was when you rang in?
My point is, Sadiq Khan has very flexible...
So what balloons has he turned down then that prove he's somehow been flexible on this one?
How can you have Hezbollah march on the street?
Yeah, we've asked about that. What balloons has he turned down? Because he gave permission to that march, you're telling me, and he gave permission to the balloon. So the argument is actually the same. He's given permission to both of them. So where's the hypocrisy? Tell me about the balloons.
Kind of a bit general.
Tell me about the balloons that he has said we can't fly in London, because I'm not aware of any, and you clearly must be.
No, I'm not. I think this is the first balloon example coming up. But,
well, then how can it be evidence of hypocrisy or flexibility?
It is a hypocrite.
Well, I know you keep saying that, but I'm asking you to prove it.
Hezbollah march.
Yeah, but but he gave permission to that as well. So that's two examples of him giving permission to stuff. In order to prove hypocrisy, you have to provide an example of him refusing permission for something.
Okay, I'll ask him for permission to do a right-wing march or something. I'm not right-wing, by the way.
Why would you want to go on a right-wing march if you're not right-wing, Paul? Is the kettle on, Paul?
Yeah, all right.
All right. Go and make a cup of tea, mate. Victoria's in Hornchurch. Victoria, the balloon. Talk to me.
I was just saying to your producer, I find it really childish.
Yeah, I do as well, but I quite like childish humour sometimes.
I just think it's something my kids would do in the playground.
Yeah, I know, and that can sometimes make grown-ups laugh as well.
To me,
Come on, your children make you laugh sometimes. Your children make you laugh sometimes, don't they?
They do, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So we both like childish humour. So why don't you like the balloon?
It's not something I personally would do because I think I'm an adult.
No one's asking you to. I'm asking why you don't like it. You've got a problem with the people that do want to do it.
I haven't got a problem with the people that want to do it.
Well, why have you rung me then?
If they want to do it, let them do it. Just because I find the whole thing funny, and I think...
Well, that's the whole point. It's supposed to be funny.
I don't know. I think people are getting too worked up for something that they shouldn't be.
But nobody's getting worked up on the side of people who think it's funny. The only people getting worked up are the people who don't think that it should be allowed to happen. And you sounded a bit like one of them when you dismissed it as childish before realising that you often laugh at childish things.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. But the other thing I was going to say is there's an old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yes.
Should we not be looking at something like that with Trump?
Well, it depends whether or not you want to be friends with a self-confessed sex pest who routinely boasts about grabbing women by the vagina and tears babies away from their children before locking them in cages. I would say that you can judge a person by the company they keep. That would be the proverb I'd bring to the table. Why would you want to be friends with someone like that?
Because you can hurt friends that are close to you more than you can harm friends that are closer to you more than you can harm enemies that you know nothing about.
But isn't that what the balloon does then? Aren't we mocking someone that you think we should be friends with? You're kind of endorsing your own idea when ringing up to do the opposite.
I don't know.
I know you don't.
I don't know.
Yeah. Down with balloons, though, eh? Down with balloons. Many thanks for all the kind words. It's a dirty job, but somebody has to do it. And no, I can't believe either that I've hit every single ball that's come into the studio since 11 o'clock for 6. But it'll probably go, except for the fella that beat me 2-0. Old Stuart, the genius. Let's get back to the question of why you're so upset about the balloon. And do you know, I don't want to turn it into a blood sport. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Can we possibly speak to some intelligent people who've got views on why unintelligent people are so cross about the balloon? I just, like, in order to just shine a little bit of light on things. And you know what I think we should do instead, or as well as playing the balloon? I think we should play the Benny Hill theme tune music. And if you listen to some of the callers that have come in over the course of the last hour and 50 minutes, you look me in the eye and tell me that they wouldn't have all have been massively improved by just having this playing quietly in the background. China. They have the best words. Tammy is in Greenwich. Tammy, why are you cross about... I can't do this anymore. How long have I got left? 12:50. I've just had a text off Mrs O'Brien, Tammy. Do you know what it says?
No.
Can you get a paddling pool on the way home? I've had some funny texts off my beloved over the years when I'm at work and she's not. But can you get a paddling pool on the way home? What the? It's not just in the studio that things have gone a little bit heated. What did you ring in to tell me?
I think, first of all, it's a brilliant idea, and I think with the Benny in tune, it's just brilliant. But I also just got a suggestion. Just in case they don't allow us fly the big balloon because of health and safety or because of traffic, I don't think there's any problem us flying little balloons with strings on it. And I got experience with this because we used to do it when we used to give out balloons for kids to run our holiday club. Can you imagine? Tons and tons of yellow balloons, obviously with the nappy and things like that, all over the place. And you just playing Benny in tune. That would be brilliant.
Well, someone could make a mint now, actually, if they went out and sold those balloons on the day. But how long would it take to get... I've got a mate who can do T-shirts. You can't do balloons. How long would it take? Because you've got to have them by Thursday or Friday. You need to make a couple of thousand... I mean, how many? Just loads of... I'm just trying to think. You wouldn't be able to get them ready in time, would you?
I'm not sure. I don't know, but I know it doesn't take that long to blow because usually it takes us like 3 hours to blow 500. That I know for a fact. But that only takes like 8 of us to do. Because imagine lots of people out there. We could do thousands of them.
You could be right. Well, good luck with it if you can find someone that can supply you with the balloons in time. Do you know what we've also done? We've managed to get through the entire hour and 50 minutes listening to snowflakes complaining about political correctness gone mad. No, hang on, I've got that the wrong way around. We've spent the last hour and 50 minutes listening to people who normally complain about snowflakes and political correctness gone mad, now complaining about an enormous balloon because it's disrespectful. We haven't even mentioned Donald Trump's role in spreading the lies about Barack Obama's birth certificate, have we? I mean, you want to talk about offensive to a political figure. How come Donald Trump's allowed to do it and the rest of us aren't? I'll put some money into your balloon plan if you get it up and running, if you get it in the sky. Joe's in Stockholm. Joe, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello, Joe.
We need to clarify because I've been reading the news the news keeps saying that Sadiq Khan has given it the okay, and I don't know if that's true or not. Has Sadiq Khan directly given it the okay?
I think it goes across. No, it wouldn't be him directly. I don't think it would be the sort of relevant department within City Hall. But of course, details like that are not really relevant to those who are appealing to the kind of callers that we've had today, who are just looking for any opportunity to have a pop at Sadiq Khan for reasons that most of us can work out. So here it is. His city operations team have met with organisers and have given them permission to use Parliament Square Garden as a grounding point for the blimp. The spokesman added, however, that the protesters would also need permission from the police and air traffic services to fly the 6-metre balloon. But if I was sitting here today and I was thinking, oh dear, I don't really want to talk about Brexit because I have encouraged people to vote for it and I'm a little bit embarrassed now that their lives are going to be made. What can we talk about? And I also want to feed into that kind of... What can I do? I'm going to present it as entirely Sadiq Khan's decision. I'm going to completely ignore the statement from City Hall and I'm going to sort of cautiously invite people to ring in and be a little bit racist. And it worked.
Well, you know what Trumpers are like. They'll get upset over anything, and their double standards are...
They won't. It's the snowflakes that get upset about everything. Trump supporters are alpha males. They're really tough and robust, and they never take offence because you can't give offence, you can only take it. Joe, you must keep up.
But what winds me up now is that the headlines, James, are saying Khan give the okay. Or like most of the headlines and most of the newspapers. And you know what's happened recently, in maybe the past hour? The Sadiq Khan balloon has reached its target. So that's reached its
No, but that's
target
good,
funding.
isn't it?
Well, not if it doesn't happen, because if it doesn't happen, if they don't get the okay, can you imagine?
Of course they'll get the okay. You can't give permission. I mean, this is the other thing that you do if you're a right-wing rabble-rouser, is you present something entirely theoretical. Like Paul, who rang in a minute ago, poor old Paul, who's having a cup of tea now, who was going to go and apply to do a right-wing march, even though he wasn't right-wing. This is the tactic of the kind of the ludicrous tabloid rabble-rouser. Well, if I did that, I wouldn't be allowed to, so I'm really cross about that. They're going to let... If someone gets the money together to stick a whopping great balloon of Sadiq Khan in the sky, it'll be double funny. It'll be double your fun. Wait until you'll have Donald Trump over there, you'll have Sadiq Khan over there. It'll be like Robot Wars, but with giant balloons.
Well, it is an effective tactic on their part. But I've got to say, I mean, it would have to happen now. And it could be a little bit of a dangerous precedent, because now that balloon's going to have to happen, and then so on and so on.
Well, that is the problem. If too many people apply for balloons, they'll ruin it for everybody, because there won't be room for any balloons. And, of course, if you're interested in facts rather than just having your bile duct tickled in the mornings, then the fact here is that they still need to clear it with the police and the air traffic control people, which I would not have thought, personally, was a shoo-in. I wouldn't have thought that was a no-brainer. It's 6 metres long, this balloon, and there are helicopters going in and out of Westminster quite often.
No, exactly. Can I ask you an off-topic question?
It depends. I mean, you're not going to go all weird like the bloke in Portsmouth, are you?
No, well, if I do, I'll have a cup of tea afterwards.
All right, then.
This is important, right?
Yes.
I live in Sweden. Am I allowed to support England tomorrow, or would that make me an unintegrating immigrant?
Oh, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. So you would fail the Norman Tebbit test.
It's a tough one.
You'd fail the Norman Tebbit test if you cheered for England. What are you going to do? Are you just going to sit on your hands? Are you going to watch it in company?
I have no idea, because we've got an election coming up in Sweden, and the right party here is doing quite well as well. They're gonna put me in the papers if I go around in my England shirt waving an England flag, aren't they? Look at this guy, can't even support the Sweden team. I'm just gonna have to sit at home and pretend the match isn't going on.
I wish you well. I wish you well.